Hey everybody, I just had a brief announcement. If you missed the mini-sode that we put out last week, we've decided for a few different reasons to change the format of the show a little bit. We've been having a problem in the last few months with our voting system. It hasn't been working out for us in the way that we necessarily wanted it to, and it's been causing some problems with some of the elements of the show that we want to encourage, including audience questions and participation. So we've decided to get rid of our voting process and switch to a rotation selection system where each host picks a different book each week, and we go in order. So we now have a calendar on the website showing the next 6 books that are going to be coming up. We'd appreciate it if you'd check the calendar out, read ahead if you so prefer, and send us your thoughts and comments so that we can respond to them on the episode. We also want to announce that the long run is going to be coming out on March 10th. That's the Thursday following the release of this episode. So please check that out if you're interested. We're also going to be opening up our live stream this week only for anybody to listen in, whether you're a Patreon subscriber or not. And you can find the link to that on our website. We will be recording at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Wednesday, March 9th. And the book that we will be discussing is Parker as adapted by Darwin Cook. And finally, we are going to be making an appearance at Emerald City Comic Con, not in any official capacity, but as has been our tradition, we are going to be doing an informal fan meetup, presumably on the Saturday of the convention. So if you're in Seattle, if you're going to be at Emerald City Comic Con, we would love to see you. And we're going to be announcing the exact time and location of that meetup in the next couple of weeks. So for more details, please check out our announcement mini-sode, and in the meantime, enjoy the show. View from the Gutters, episode 157. Welcome to View from the Gutters, the comic book club podcast where each episode we discuss a collected edition, trade paperback, or graphic novel. Warning, this podcast contains massive spoilers for the topic work. On this week's episode, we discuss 5 Ghosts by Frank Barbiere, Chris Mooneyham, and Garry Brown. Thank you to all of our Patreon sponsors for contributing to the show, and a special thank you to this week's episode sponsor, Brian May.
I'm not even going to ask this time which episode number it is.
11D12.
He actually already asked that to me before we set up.
I was just double checking, and then I double checked so that I would know when this moment came that it's episode 157.
Oh, no.
And I'm Tobiah Panshin.
Brant Gillihan-Eddy. Oh, sorry.
You should be. Don't. Why should you be?
Brant, you
Kayleigh
know
was
how
trying
hard
to
this
talk,
is.
and it was mean.
I'm Kayleigh Fleeman.
I'm Kit DeForge.
And I'm Cade Reynolds.
And welcome back once again. This week we are talking about 5 Ghosts by some guys. and
Frank
such.
J. Barbiere and Chris Mooneyham, except for issue 6, which was drawn by Garry Brown.
My goodness. Aren't you on point? Well, since you know exactly what's going on, Brant, and you pitched this book,
Yes.
let us start our discussion with you.
Wait, don't we have announcements?
No, I announced the announcements before the show started.
We've evolved.
Sorry.
We've evolved.
No, that's
Okay.
fine. I'm going to record them later and then add them in post with the magic of editing.
That's
Hey,
mostly
we'll
so that
fix it.
Toby doesn't have to put up with these shenanigans while he's trying
my
to.
God.
Also,
Could
can
you
we not
imagine?
do vibrato things like that? That's ghostist. I'm really concerned about ghost. Like, how we going to represent ghosts here?
Yes,
There will be no booze. These are our operating procedures for this episode. No booze.
Really,
Ever. No booze, no jokes about spooky scaries. No spectral Americans will be harmed or people from not America that are also ghosts.
I was going to say,
Because we
respectful
don't have to be
foreigners.
originalist about it. We're going to be really sensitive to all the ghosts in the audience.
I definitely think that ghost representation is a necessary conversation to have.
Nah, it's a little nebulous. No. Okay, I broke my own rule. The end.
Fuck my life forever.
A little ethereal.
Kills myself.
That's not good. That
Hard to
did
get a
not
hold
stick
of.
for a minute.
Hey, if you kill yourself, you'll be a ghost.
And then you can make the complaints.
Yeah.
Yes.
Then you can make all the jokes.
Hey, then we would have representation.
Yeah.
Oh.
You should do it.
I already told you guys
For the
I was a
benefit of
robot in a
representation.
ghost in a robot body.
Can I call myself a pre-ghost?
No.
Damn it.
Well, I
Brant.
have a friend who's a ghost, so
So,
as that. No.
Brant, please save us from this horror.
I'm not sure what to say at this point. It's
Well,
five
talk
ghosts.
about 5 ghosts.
It's a book. It's got ghosts.
There are 5
Okay,
of them.
so and there's 5 of them. So where to start? So I'd only read the first issue when I pitched this book,
Mm-hmm.
but I found myself really intrigued by the concept, the art, and just kind of some general buzz that I had read about this in the various corners of the interwebs. And I have to say that I'm pretty pleased. I think I honestly, actually, here's what my deal is with this book. I walk away being like, is it okay that I think this book is fun and okay? Because I'm now that kind of person who worries constantly about whether or not it's okay for me to like things that I think are problematic on some level. I think there's some clever things happening here, and there's some things that really connect with stuff that's big in my personal world. The biggest one being that my wife is
It's a treasure hunter?
is a treasure hunter. You got it. No, my wife is a therapist. And one of her particular points of interest and one of the ways that we connected was around Joseph Campbell and Carl Jung, right? The notion of the metaconsciousness, shared kind of historical and mythical figures, and how those things are kind of embedded in human thought. That's a big thing for Jung. So I find kind of the background operating premise of this world that's presented in 5 Ghosts, like, really fascinating, because it's somebody kind of being like, well, hey, if that really happens, then these things are in essence as real as a person's presence would be, right? Like, ghost is used in kind of a strangely loose term in a sense. Like, if they're not ghosts that most people traditionally think of as far as specific dead person, it's like meta ghost, or ghost of a ideal or concept as an ethereal affecting figure.
Well, that was the part that was really most interesting to me about this work, was this idea that there is this dream realm that we never really get a look at, but that it sort of interfaces with our reality in this like very specific way, where it's like, we look like the things that you expect us to look like,
Right.
or things from your collective unconscious,
Right.
which is really, I mean, pretty out there relative to spooky, haunting, ghosty things, like in a very traditional sense. It's
Right. It
very
certainly
meta.
adds a layer of like additional metaphysical parsing.
Yeah, it reminded me very vaguely of I won't say too much about this, but from Lock and Key, there are antagonists that share certain aspects with this.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt that there was some kind of sympathetic vibration there that was intriguing to me.
Yeah.
You know, Cade, what did you think about this book?
Overall, I really liked it. I liked that I could look at the ghosts not quite as ghosts, but like on a more spiritual level. Kind of to what Brant was talking about, how like it's like more a concept instead of actual ghost. But you can actually take it quite a few different ways when you're looking at them, especially like when you identify them on the panels. You know, it's like he looks at something, then you see the what power he's tapping into, and then you see him finish the thing, and it's kind of like like, okay, well, now I know like what part of his brain he's using, or now I know what power of the spirit he's tapping into. I don't know. I went into this book not expecting much, and I was, I found myself really enjoying it. I did not like the art. I had a big problem with it.
Really? Because I mean, it's very much aping the style of the pulp comics.
No, that is true, but I'm not a big fan of a lot of pulp comics to begin with. I don't know. I feel like
I guess that's fair.
I don't know. I actually do like more modernized looking comics, like with the digital art, digital colors. Like, I mean, I hate to say that, like, I'm a big fan of 90s Image, but I'm a big fan of 90s Image. Like, you know, growing up to me, like, that was the new stuff. Like, that was like, you know, and when you're a kid, newer is always better.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that's what I grew up liking. And then, you know, early 2000s, things started morphing again. And now we have like this kind of mashup of all these different kinds of art styles put together. I don't know. There's actually a book I want to talk about sometime in the future. It was the prequel to Age of Apocalypse, but it was actually published 10 years later as their anniversary thing.
Is that the Age of Apocalypse? Or Ages of Apocalypse, rather?
No, it's
Okay.
just called X-Men Age of Apocalypse, but it was
Okay.
a prequel series written 10 years later. It doesn't actually have anything to do with the story, but that's for a different day.
Okay.
But they tried to replicate the art and realized that they couldn't make it look the same as comic books were in 2005 and replicate the art at the same time. So they just took on a new style. But I don't know, for this book, like, even though I didn't like the art, I loved the story, and I loved how the story helped the art. How, like, I couldn't imagine this book with a different art style, even though I didn't like it. It still was a great book to me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can definitely see how it can be a sharp shift for somebody who is a fan of modern comic art. It didn't exactly thrill me, but there were some really great touches that I really liked. The way that the ghosts were represented, kind of lurking over his shoulder, or in reflections, or in shadows, or kind of indicating to him a little bit with nobody else seeing. Like, they were kind of woven into the background around him, and I really liked that. The way that they were just kind of elements of the universe that he was sort of receptive to, and they were kind of there with him in that moment and then gone again when he didn't need them. It wasn't like he was.
And I mean, love
Dracula took him over like 100%. Just fucking, you're mine now, bitch. You're doing what I want.
Well,
but the
he's
rest
a very
of them,
powerful character in literature. So
yeah, the rest of them, it's like, oh, I'm going to lend you my ability for like a second there, and then I'm gone again. It was much more of an ephemeral connection, and I thought that was really interesting. And the way that it was depicted worked really well. It wasn't overpowering.
No, I did like the vampire.
Wanted to jump in, Kayleigh?
Yes. One of the things, and I guess kind of flipping our usual format where we talk about art later, I want to talk about the art first. 'Cause I really love the art.
Let's get into it.
One of the things I greatly appreciate about this art was growing up reading and loving a lot of pulpy novels, and Indiana Jones and Tomb Raider specifically, just as series, as like my two favorite things ever. I love the way that the art showed this very like 40s, 50s-esque adventure pulp, but kind of the way that we drew and saw it in like the 70s and 80s. Like that sort of lens that we did way back when we're like, oh, look, this is kind of pulpy. And that makes it fun because it's kind of pulpy, but it's years later. So I really like that. And one of the things in particular is that if you look at any one of these panels, they look like illustrations that you would have in a novel. Like the
kind of scratchy texture.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And they're static, but you can feel that it was like a snapshot taken of this moment. So that you don't see action as it's happening, which is kind of what most comics try to strive for. But you see these pauses in action. Like you see villains and stuff as they like rise, and they've got all this glowing clouds, and I'm gesturing wildly with my hands because podcasting is a visual medium.
Everybody knows that.
Yeah, of course. If you can't see me, I don't know what you're doing wrong. But no, I love that it was like these moments and these stills of these scenes of these battles, and that it took a little while for me to kind of grab onto that. It took a couple pages because at first I was like, oh, this is kind of weird, this is kind of static. But once I kind of got into that mindset, it was, to me, kind of what Scott McCloud was talking about when he's talking about the space between panels and how your mind fills that in. I feel like this book and the artist really explored that, and I thought it was cool. It was a lot of fun to read because you imagine all the action that has to happen outside of these still shots in order for these moments to happen, for them to exist and to be drawn this way. And I had a lot of fun reading this because of the art.
So you would say that it's had really good use of the gutters?
Yeah. And you get a really good view of what's happening in the gutters.
Now, there is something I wanted to say when I said I don't like the art. I do... What?
Just like when I said I don't like the art, I had something else I wanted to say about that.
Yes.
Just to further my point.
I did really love the establishing shots. The big scenery stuff, the splash pages, especially like with the hidden city. And they've got that
when they
big
go to
spread.
Shangri-La.
Yeah, and you can see all I did like that. I liked that a lot. It looked like a painting you would find if you were a treasure hunter.
Yeah, well, it definitely does have that pulp style down hard. And not just like pulp comics, but pulp fiction generally, the kind of artwork that you would have like on covers or in the middle pages illustrating stories.
So what Kayleigh was talking about here, I thought about as narrative style of illustration versus sequential styles in illustration. But it's funny because you still have a lot of those very early comic typical sort of elements in there. This motherfucker got some Kirby Crackle going down, which makes me super happy because I love first saying Kirby Crackle, and I also love thinking about Kirby Crackle and Grandma's house. But so a thing that was really strong, I think, in this book as far as coloring and illustration goes, the coloring style that's here, you have a lot of the dark kind of filled spaces to take place of larger detail, but it lends more of a presence to some of these like background elements that I think is critical because this is a story with a lot of setting important. How do I put that? I feel like because this story jaunts through multiple settings as an action adventure story, that's one of the points of interest that tends to be in these kind of pulpy things is exotic locales and very dramatic, palaces and London streets, and this sense of, again, setting as character, which we talk about a lot, I think was communicated super well by the illustrator's style. The illustrator also, it says in the back, did the correspondence, Joe Kubert, whatever,
he's graduate
school.
of the Kubert School.
And if you've ever seen any of those ads, which I think most of us have, you can tell. You can tell he learned that school of illustration, and I think that he must have been a quick study, because I think that he, like you said, aped extremely well, but it has a lot of the things that I like in Mike Mignola's illustrations, in that sense of blocking out large segments of a panel with solid color, because you don't really have to overdo some of these building settings, things like that, to give them a sense of presence with a very simple decision making in positive and negative space with block color like that. I definitely feel that. But having this contrast of the sort of washed out, faded out color on top of the really stark ink work, in this case, it both lends the age and reinforces the setting. So
one of the points about the color, and as I'm watching you kind of flip through this book, I think it would have been a very easy mistake to make, to just kind of darken everything, to make everything dark and dreary and, oh, it's so sinister. There are these 5 ghosts. It's so dark. It's so like spooky. But it's not. You have a lot of pastels. You have a lot of what would have been bright colors, but they look like they're washed out on old pages. Faded, yeah. And it makes it gorgeous. I really love it. It makes everything have a time and a setting, and it adds to the layer of like, oh, this is a new weird place. This is the forgotten hidden city. This is, the streets of London, and in Sherlock's time, this is Dracula's castle. And it's like all these really cool scenes that you really feel like you're put into because of the color, not the lack of. And I think that's really important, and that's something that a lot of comics, especially ones that tend to deal with the supernatural, avoid. They avoid the use of colors and light colors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yep. I absolutely agree, and I want to even take it one further. It's not just a question of how dark or light it is. I think it would have been a huge mistake to color this realistically. I think the fact that he uses a very limited color palette throughout most of the book, I think is a really strong supporting feature of it. I think it lends a lot of the weight of how the book feels. The fact that you so frequently have pages where, and I'm looking from across the room at the copy that Kit is flipping open, where it's like he's this weird like pinky peach color and he's against a green sky and a purple ground. And it just looks really gross and cool, because even though the colors keep changing on each page, he's only using a particular subpalette.
Yeah.
One page is completely green or completely purple or just these like 4 colors.
Yes.
And that works
Setting
really
the
well.
mood.
Yeah, color choices are incredibly wise for that reason in this book. The opening of this, again, I've talked about him before, reminded me very strongly of the Lee Weeks Daredevil that I really love, Dark Knights, because of the limited color palette reinforcing mood in that. Similarly, color choices as setting and color choices as mood become critical when he has the flashback segments with his sister in there. And I love the brown in that. I love the kind of blonded out.
Oh yeah, it reminds me of one of the things that's kind of popped up here and there in like video games, which is like the old school, like, we're going to tell you a story of a time long ago. Like it's like meant to kind of like ape a weird like nouveau version of like cave painting or sketch work. Yeah. There's some really great stuff that's done in that one.
But we also have, like, I don't want to miss these in our discussion. We have the Templesmith, I believe it is. Yes, we have some of these Templesmith variant things kind of tucked in here too that are just spectacular to break up the chapters with. So I don't feel like we're losing anything by some of the color choice in here, because it is really fun to have this thematic stuff sort of broken up by these really beautiful, more modern variant covers. I think the contrast further serves to delight me in the larger sense of the book and the choices that they made, because you see what could have been. It's still nice to have a glimpse, but I like the rest of the book's illustration that much more.
I think there's one in volume 2 that I can't remember the artist. It looks like Scotty Young to a certain extent, but I don't think it is Scotty Young. But it has like a really cartoony version of them all like following each other and like walking across the thing as one of the breaks. And yeah, I like that stuff because it makes me feel like, oh, like someone else could tell a story about these characters, and like I would be able to visually tell who they are. So clearly the character design is strong enough. But on the flip side of it, it's like, oh yeah, I definitely prefer the setting or the tone of what the team decided to do.
Also, diggity damn, these muscle man thighs and these slacks are fantastic. I looked at this page for a solid minute, just like, hot damn, the end of the first volume, because I really loved and marveled at the very general and easy illustrative and character design choice of Fabian as this like mishmash of Indiana Jones and Ash, I think.
Yeah, depending on how much you know about it. Like Doc Savage is
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
definitely a big
Actually,
And that's the thing, you
The
throw a
number
lot
one-
together.
The number one reference I was going to go for, John Carter of
Oh,
Mars.
yeah,
Yes.
Oh my God,
Yes.
Fabian Gray looks exactly like John
Yeah.
Carter of
And
Mars.
I love it because that's like the pulp hero is this like muscly but not too muscly, dark-haired,
Superman
tall,
curled.
Yeah, Superman curl, like hero-esque, but he's got a bad streak and a dark secret, and
I could
he's
bounce
got
a quarter off his ass,
save.
and that is just fine.
It
Yeah.
did not bother me at all.
It's so good.
Not at all.
Black hair, gray eyes,
yeah.
thews of steel.
Smoldering.
Cheekbones.
He's gonna cast the smolder.
Well,
on
and
you.
so yes, so the one like, and it's not necessarily specifically that this book is problematic, but it's dealing with something that's sort of problematic, which is pulp, right? Which uses exoticism as a way to convey excitement, but sometimes that can become tropey. I think they did a good job of like, so there's the one part where they're flying over the like Amazon jungle looking place. Well, luckily all the people who are in there are not just tribesmen, they're like demonic tribesmen. So you could at least make the claim that they're trying to at least break away somewhat from the, like they're trying to at least soften some of the more damning things that show up
Right.
in pulp. You know, the one thing that of course jumped out to me is, you know, Fabian Gray goes to every city and there are strong women there who want to sleep with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and on one hand, it's like, well, sure,
Listen.
you know, why not? But on the other hand, it's like, you know, every female character wants to basically like drop her pants because he shows up. Like that's
No, because the quarter's way over there because of his ass.
Yeah, no, I understand.
Do you realize
Well,
how
and I
far
think that's-
that quarter bounced?
She's thinking about them quarters bouncing in her bank account,
Yeah.
man.
So, but it's just
Quarter
that thing
day.
where it's like, you know, I think that is like a strong thing of pulp is that, you know, like every cover where it's like he's got like the half nude woman under his arm.
Oh, more
You
than
know.
half.
Well, yeah, 3/4 nude woman under his arm, like kind of a thing.
This is something that I wanted to talk about more, though, because that was kind of my major complaint about this series, is that I feel like from a story perspective, it is so strongly overwhelmed by its references and its inspirations.
Sure.
Like, I honestly felt like, you know, I mean, the title of the book is 5 Ghosts, and he's being haunted by these 5 ghosts that are kind of overwhelming him. And I feel like on a certain level, that is a metaphor for this story. Like, it's obvious that the people who wrote this, like, they love Conan and, you know, John Carter of Mars and Doc
Savage.
Doc Savage. I kept going for the Warren Ellis, Axel Brass.
I thought you were going to say Doc Brown, and I'm like, wait, what?
No.
Marty, we got 5 ghosts.
But like, so much of the series is directly, and I mean like directly out of pulp stories that I know. Like, I never really felt like it walks on its own 2 feet and does its own thing. Even to the point, like, I'm not sure when this is set, somewhere between the early 1930s and the late 40s.
Because there are
there's
Nazis.
But like, they're running around in what I take to be like Persia or something like that, and there's sailing ships and dudes running around with swords, and there's pirates and they're having sword battles on the pirate ships, like
Right, which is I think part of that exoticism as
right. Well, it's
like,
that very Conan thing where like one day he's in the Stone Age and he's throwing rocks around and fighting giants, and then in the next story he's in like 17th century France sailing tall ships and being a privateer.
Right.
And I think it's Robert E. Howard, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would just throw Conan into whatever setting he needed for whatever story he wanted to tell that day.
Because the setting is adventure.
Right, exactly. But like I never really got a strong sense of the world that Fabian Gray is inhabiting, because it seems to so radically shift, because it's like, I want them to have sword fights because sword fights are cool. It's like, well, that doesn't exactly make sense for the setting that you're saying.
Yeah, well, I mean,
I don't know, like I couldn't find myself getting into it because it's like, I like this thing, I'm going to do this thing, and it never gelled as its own piece for me.
We've talked about this before on the show, where it's like that's kind of one of the premier features of pulp novelization was like
episodic.
The exotic, and like almost being like, isn't this a fun world because it's so barbaric? Like, there's no Studebakers and tea time here. It's all swarthy men with swords. But there's also that whole thing where like literally from story, like there are some overarching plots. I can think of a couple in Doc Savage, but 99.9% of the time, like, it does not matter what order you read those books in.
Sure.
And I feel like there's an attempt to have your cake and eat it too with this series, where it's like there's kind of a rough plot where he's sort of trundling along, but for the most part, you could read Volume 2 and Volume 1 sort of separate of each other.
Well, what I'm saying is like, they go to Africa and it's like, it's the 19th century and they're in the African bush. And then they go to the pirate place and it's like, it's pirate times.
Yeah.
Like I don't know where we are in time in this series.
Right.
And that bothered me.
I also don't know what's important.
Yeah, for me, what I love about pulp is, and what I love about like Elephant Men, for example, all-time favorite series, is kind of just this, it's ridiculous, it's fantastic, we're running with it.
Right.
Like either you pick up your bags and run along, or you get left behind. And I kind of love that, because it's not like an elitist sort of you get left behind. It's like, nah, man, you got to be a part of the excitement. You have to be willing to accept that this is going to be silly. That's going to be fun. It's going to be ridiculous.
Right. Do you want to see a fucker punch a dinosaur or not?
Yeah, exactly.
Grab your bags.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like you were in the Middle East and you got on a ship and then it got capsized and now you're in a South Amazonian jungle with a demon witch lady who's gonna bring a dragon. Like, that happens.
Yeah.
That happens to everybody sooner.
In the world of Fabian Gray, that's just what happens.
Do you want to see swashbuckling pirates go up against a dragon? Because I do. So you better hop on board so that we can do that. And I love it.
And a lot of that, again, like cheap, easy entertainment, good time for a small price that you can pick up at the newsstand, is because most of the time you're doing your job, you're living your life, you're doing your thing in your time in the way everyone else wants you to do. Do you want to read about people doing things in your time in your way if you're not happy with your time in your way? Probably not. So you probably want to fantasize. You probably want a pretty general person that goes and does a thing, and that's his motivation. To go and do the thing, because you want to go do the thing, but you can't go do the thing because Doris wants you to be home by 5 so that Sally and Bobby will eat dinner with his father. Their fathers. They're both him. That's me.
So the one thing that did come to mind for me reading this book, and it kept popping in my head and I kept forgetting the name of it, is the late 80s cartoon Brave Star.
Oh yeah,
where he's
I
like,
love Brave Star.
I call the spirit of the eagle and I can see farther. I call the spirit of the wolf and I'm strong. And so occasionally I was reading through this the second time and I'm like, I call the spirit of Sherlock Holmes and I notice shit. I call the spirit of Musashi and I can cut motherfuckers down.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of like, there was a part of me that really wanted to be him, like have him yelling, "Form of Dracula!"
Yes.
But it didn't happen, and that's okay.
That would have been racist.
But does Dracula woo woo woo? Because that's something that
that wasn't like a Native American woo woo. That was like an energy field woo woo woo.
Also, that's more like the Phantom from Defenders of the Earth.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Phantom. That's the other guy. Well, hey, there you go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There's your pulp connection. I always forget about the Phantom. I don't know why.
We always got to
You
talk
can't-
about.
You can't forget about the
Venture
Phantom. He's
Brothers
Billy Zane.
Oh, you can't forget about
Yeah.
Defenders of the Earth, the greatest cartoon that ever was.
I can forget about that.
and- No, it's. We always talk about our love of Venture Brothers. We always throw some of that in there. I'm so caught up on the typeface on the cover.
Oh yeah, no, they do
Because
great.
of that particular reason. And Brant, when you had suggested this, I had been looking through different things at Gabby's, and I had this really pathetic moment of wanting to pick it up just for my own purposes and going, come on, Kit, you have a lot of comics at home. Besides, shouldn't you be reading more sophisticated fare at this time? And I was like, but I want to read the one with the Venture Brothers font. It looks like the guy's going to have a bunch of ghosts in here.
Yeah.
It's like, no,
At least
you
five.
are an adult. You need to read more adult comics.
Yeah.
And then you were like, 5 ghosts. And I'm like, yes, that's my in. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think there tends to be, especially because there is still a point where we as comics fans feel some level of need to prove that comics are worthwhile and can be adult. So when you are reading a book like 5 Ghosts, there's a part of you that kind of wants to slip a book cover over it and be like, nah, it's a sophisticated comic.
Right,
You don't
right,
understand. Comics are for adults too. But this is great. And there's nothing wrong with a purely fun comic.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that gets lost.
That is
And-
very fair.
And I want to thank the creators of 5 Ghosts
Yeah.
for making a fun comic that is just fun, and it is great to read.
I do appreciate the fact that the title of this book is not The Haunting of Fabian Gray, although that is the subtitle of Volume 1.
Mm-hmm.
This book is like it's telling you with its title, like, hey, read me. I have ghosts. And you're like, I don't know. How many ghosts? 5 ghosts.
5
And you're like,
ghosts.
that is enough ghosts.
It's actually more than that, really.
Okay, I mad dogged the hell out of a bunch of librarians who were like fucking like throwing me shade. I had reference triage on Tuesday and I was like bopping through 2 during our breaks and stuff. And I had these like serious librarians in there and these learners like myself and people looking over like they're having real conversations during break, trying to prove to everyone else that they're so into their jobs and everything that the only thing they want to talk about is, reference. And I'm sitting here like a dumbass, the only person in the room, like, boots kicked up on the table reading 5 Ghosts. And I get some shade over here from the side from this, this young librarian next to me. And I just kind of like pick up my chin a little bit, nod, and she's like, what you got there? And I go, 5 Ghosts. And she's like, I can see that. Why are you reading that? And I was like, because I like funny books. And she's like, oh, yeah, okay. And she just kind of turns away. And I just kind of was like, 5 Ghosts quietly to myself. And so then I kept catching her every other break, trying to like peek over my shoulder and read my 5 Ghosts. And of course they always peek over when guys banging the hot chick or something like that. And then you got to like waggle your eyebrows at them so they'll leave you alone. Not to make them uncomfortable, but yeah, I don't know. I got excited picking this up. I got excited because it had the proper number of ghosts. And when I went to get it at Gabby's, I made a point of letting Mannix know exactly how many ghosts is proper for an adventure story multiple times over. So I feel like it was a learning experience for many people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to throw something out here, and I want to see if anybody picked up the same thing I did. Fabian's buddy, was it Sebastian?
Mhm.
Did anybody else get a homoerotic vibe off of Sebastian?
Yay!
Yeah.
I didn't say anything. And
I
someone
think there's
else
actually a
did.
more
Some
overt reference in
text.
Volume 2 where he says
Yeah,
something.
get
like,
it.
Can't spell subtext without sex.
Yeah, I think Sebastian does make some offhand comment in Volume 2 where I was like, all right.
Okay, because I was
gonna say
looking
2
for it.
T's for testosterone
That too.
and thigh.
Wait, which one's Sebastian?
He's the
Friend.
the
with
researcher.
the
guy.
glasses,
Yeah.
Okay, but
the buddy, his companion, his
The-
erstwhile
His
companion.
companion.
Yeah.
but it's Fabian Gray's sister's fiance.
Nah,
No.
that's weird.
That's okay. So there's that one picture where was it Sylvia
Mm-hmm.
and Sebastian are like holding hands, or he's got like his arm around her or something like that, and Fabian is also there.
Aw.
But there's a quote in the second book where he's like, you go do it. You save her. You save my fiance.
I don't know if I caught that.
We are going to go by supernatural rules.
Forbidden love.
Yeah.
Loved it. Dare not speak its name.
Yep. Supernatural rules. They gay. They so gay.
No,
Nobody wants to admit that they're gay, but they gay.
Well, I mean, maybe there's an open relationship there that includes.
Well, okay, so this is what I'm saying. Like, I was looking through the entire book, looking for something more overt about it, and I didn't really see anything. So it is very much a subtext thing, which would be in keeping with it as a pulp work. Like, that is not something that they could be open about, so it had to be done through subtext. But I got the very strong feeling that Sebastian was harboring romantic feelings for Fabian.
It's because he's got glasses.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have
He's
my access to
sensitive.
my copy of Volume 2, and I don't think any of us do. So,
I didn't have two with me. I checked it back in.
well, that'll be food for thought, dear
Yeah.
listener. Do you think?
Yeah, let us know what you think.
Do you want to make me a happy person and confirm my feelings so I don't have to write 5 Ghost fan fiction? Fan fiction.
Are you
of
asking our
fiction.
listeners to write 5 Ghost fan fiction?
I'm
for
not
you?
asking. I'm more telling.
Because if
okay.
you give $200 to our Patreons,
Shit,
I will write
that.
I
I'll
will
try.
write 5 Ghost fan fiction
Fuck.
for you.
I'll
Hell,
do that.
I might just do it anyway.
I'll draw you stick figure pictures of that. Like the thighs will be a lot thicker on the stick figures because I'm so caught up on that last page.
No,
It cracks me up. Nah.
thank you, Brant, for bringing this book. I enjoyed it. I had
Such
a
a
lot
happy
of fun
thing to
reading
read.
it.
Yeah, Image has a lot of books that make a lot of waves, and then there's actually still a very solid number of kind of smaller books that just they trundle along. They do just fine. They get trades. They get collected. But they're not. Brian K. Vaughan's Saga, Kirkman's Walking Dead. Oh my gosh! And so when I ran into this, I was just like, I wanna.
Yeah, I got to say, there's a lot of Image books that I'm incredibly butthurt have been canceled before their time. Mercenary Sea, Death Vigil, just a couple examples to throw out there. Oh, Mercenary Sea, I'm going to bring that pretty soon because it is also chock full of pulpy goodness.
The Wikipedia hasn't been updated for a long time, as far as I can tell, because I think there's a Volume 3 and possibly a Volume 4 kicking around somewhere. I'm trying to confirm that as we speak. Of 5 Ghosts.
There's 3 out at least because I know that when I went by Gabby's, they had 3 volumes sitting next to each
and
other.
I think 4 might be either it isn't out; it's coming out soon. And then apparently it got optioned and is in development. At least as of 2014, it was being developed by Sci-Fi for a series.
my
But
God.
I believe when I was looking at single issues, there were 20, maybe 21.
Okay, well, I mean, that's at least a Volume 3.
Yes.
I
Hey.
would be happy to watch that. I don't watch anything on Sci-Fi. I don't really have cable, so there's that. But
You can watch some of
I
their
do
stuff
like
for free
cheese.
on their website.
good to know. Yeah, I don't know. I love me some cheese, and I think a lot of the time when we talk about books, we sort of have to talk about bigger things like sexism or like other problematic elements in books that they're too big to ignore. I don't really know that I feel that way about 5 Ghosts just merely for the fact that I know what it's starting from and I know what it's aping.
Mm-hmm.
But that does seem kind of funny because I know I had some things with like Elric when we read that. But I don't know why, and I wish I could pinpoint why exactly it was that I didn't have a problem with really anything in this. And I think some of that is just so much of it made me feel like a young person watching Indiana Jones again.
And when
Everybody's just,
I was gonna say, and when you're having fun, you're less likely to notice things like
yeah, that's a real thing too. I similarly don't have any problem with the problematic content in Sin City. I And I think it's for similar reasons where it's like, I don't think I'm meant to take this as a serious, like, little capsule of a real world and a real thing. And I think a lot of that is the shifting setting, the shifting time, the shifting things like that. It's hard to pinpoint what sort of world this person would be in. And I jokingly laughed and said adventure, but I think that's kind of seriously it, though. That because it's so much a disconnected fantasy adventure kind of thing that I don't really feel that there's enough grounding to take any of it seriously, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
So, I don't
honestly,
know.
on a certain level, this book is so unambiguously what it is that you kind of just have to shrug your shoulders and go, okay, well, that's the thing. And I was talking to somebody about this just recently in regard to Star Trek Voyager, but also in reference to conversations that we've had before. A lot of it is about what you're willing to forgive. Like, if you're reading a book and you're having fun and something problematic pops up on the page, if you're having fun, you're more likely to go, that's not that big a deal in this context because I love so much of what I'm getting out of it that I'm just going to look the other way. Whereas if you're not enjoying something as much and something problematic pops up, you're going to go, hey, now wait a minute. That's not cool.
I feel the same way about, we've mentioned John Carter Mars. I love John Carter.
Samesies.
I reread Princess of Mars a lot. And I know by all accounts that's something that probably should be more of a deal with me, but it's kind of not. I grew up watching James Bond movies with my dad, and it's a similar kind of thing that I think when I get so immersed in the adventure and the setting for the time and the fun that people are having, it's not really a big deal. I watch tons and tons of episodes of, like original series Star Trek and stuff with my uncle. And a lot of that is just once you get to swashbuckling, the buckling don't stop. So
You can't not buckle a swash.
yeah,
All swashes must be buckled.
Mhm.
yeah.
Everybody knows that. One of my issues with this, and I understand that they were probably on the same limits that most people are when they're doing a new series, is that I wish that certain scenes were drawn out a little bit longer, specifically like the 5 trials that
Yeah,
Fabian
yeah.
had to endure, because I wanted those to be something, because that's so cool. And so I wanted that to be more drawn out. And I felt a little, not quite cheated, but almost cheated.
Well, there were
But-
a couple that were kind of gimmies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was kind of like, well, I want it to last longer. Like, I want a whole issue dedicated to those 5 trials.
Mm-hmm.
Which
Or a miniseries.
yeah, or a miniseries.
I would love a miniseries.
But I understand why they probably couldn't do that, or even why maybe they didn't want to do that. Just as a reader, building up to that point, being like, oh man, he's got to go through these 5 trials. They're going to be rough. They're going to be awful. They're going to be terrible things that he has to endure, but he has to finish them in time so he can save everybody else. I wanted those to have a little bit more of a payoff. And there were a couple of scenes that were like that, where it kind of built up to something and you were like, yeah. And then it kind of just hopped over it.
I think that's the one disadvantage of kind of that pulpiness
Yeah.
factor, is that like you very rarely believe he's ever in like substantial danger.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, like all trials sort of feel slightly less emphasized or threatening, because it's kind of like, well, of course, it's Fabian Gray.
Yeah. Of course he.
Well, like if you have this bit I'm looking at here with Professor Handsome McSexy talking at the board here about the dreaming and the supernatural power and the Dreamstone and all that. It kind of building this setup for creatures of immense power, things beyond your imagining and all of that. And that always makes me similarly do Kayleigh's thing of yeah, here it comes, yeah. And Baldy Mick Exotico has also got like a full page spread sort of thing talking about power and magic and all this good time stuff. And then you've got the bondage cross, and here we go into trial land and everything, big scary monsters. And these ghosts, for a book called 5 Ghosts, there's really, I feel like maybe I got like 1.5 ghosts.
Okay.
Can I interject one thing real quick?
No.
So just 1 second. That panel where Baldy King of Shangri-La is explaining shit, that 2-page spread, the panel layout in that,
Gorgeous.
so confusing.
But
I'm sorry.
gorgeous.
Oh, it's a
Totally.
it's
I
a
love
beautiful
this.
page, but those narration boxes, I had to read it like 6 times to get that. Go ahead, Brant.
So
Sorry.
one thing, because I usually try to look this up beforehand. So 3 volumes, it's on hiatus currently. And actually that was just confirmed by Barbiere as of yesterday morning at 9:43 Pacific Standard
Rude.
Time that it's currently on hiatus, but he's hoping to make announcements later this year.
I was just looking on Image's website. There are 17 issues. And that is the 3rd volume is 13 through 17.
Yeah.
Okay.
Plus an annual number 1.
All right.
But the thing that I did want to say about the trials, the one trial that I was like, what? Was Sherlock Holmes' trial is a crock of shit.
Yes.
It's like, giant monster erupts from thing. Do you remember my apartment number? Yes. I was like, sort like, it's like everybody else makes you like hone your skills, show what you're doing, fight a bunch of guys. Even Dracula's like, well, I have your sister, but Sherlock Holmes is literally like, see that giant monster over there? Where are you gonna run? Oh, that's right, my house.
My house.
Like,
Come
what?
on over, buddy.
Like, what does
We're
that got to do with
simpatico.
anything?
Yeah, I read the street name and I was like, Baker Street, go to 221B. And then he did, and it was over.
You
and I was
did
like,
They probably explain this in the books. I've always wondered what's in 221A.
it's his
Mrs. Hudson. No.
Yeah.
It's
His
what?
landlady.
Mrs. Hudson.
Oh, that's where Mrs. Hudson lives. Okay.
Undecided. Or
Now I
just
know.
an entire thing of just cocaine for his cocaine. By the way, because we're talking about Sherlock Holmes, just watched Abominable Bride. Wow.
It was really
Yeah.
good.
That's good.
Wowie. Just to throw that in there, if you don't watch Sherlock, you should at least just absolutely watch the movie that they made, because I loved it. It came along perfect timing with this book too, because I was sitting there like, yee. Good stuff.
But yeah, that should absolutely have been Sherlock Holmes' test. Just a room full of cocaine.
Mm-hmm. You're like, get down 7%.
Pass.
Is it now? Which is it this
Oh,
time?
yeah.
Cocaine or opium? It's a 7% solution. Yeah, it's
But 7% of which?
But
That's
I
for
think
you
some
to
of
deduce.
this
No quiero
too
las dos.
is like going through some of these trials, as you said, Brant is supposed to be like, ha, he's so mighty, he just gets through this shit. That's why he's our hero. Hero voice. But I turned to Kayleigh when I was doing a read through again and was like, man, that riddle was bullshit. That riddle was easy as farts. And I was about ready to say something about that and be like, come on, man, what kind of riddle is that? And then you said the thing about everything being too easy, because half of the fun of the pulp thing is everything is the ease of inserting yourself into a situation you wish you could do from the safety of your seat at home.
Yeah.
And to make you feel smart, it's got to be, there's this fun line in a lot of pulp things is the mystery challenging enough to sound scary, I guess, at first, but easy enough for the reader to get it and feel smart about.
That's right.
And that did kind of crack me up about the fire riddle in there. But yeah, I was all ready to be butthurt about it, and then I thought about it and was like, no, actually, I can see what we're doing here. Even my one little whine about that isn't much of a whine in light of the setting. So,
All right.
Yes.
Kayleigh, I know that you had wanted to talk about family a little bit. Is that something you wanted to address?
Yeah. So I am always a fan of stories that involve family, coming from a big family myself. As I've said a couple of times on the show, I have 4 brothers and sisters. So big family, lots of people, always loud. So I am a huge fan of stories that have siblings, and I am hoping I have not read volume 2 or 3. I am hoping that we get to see his sister, and that we get to see that relationship because it's hinted at, and I think would be a lot of fun to explore. And I
mean they boning?
No.
What?
The relationship that they hinted at?
No.
Okay. Apparently I'm alone in that subtext.
Yeah.
So we're gonna. Oh man.
No, incest is
Worse.
never.
Ever.
It's the
Never.
game the whole family can play.
I'm sorry.
That is one
Like,
thing I
okay,
never joke
fucking-
with, man. That makes
No,
me
no.
so
Supernatural fans, Wincest is disgusting.
sad. Ew,
Okay,
man.
it's gross. Knock that shit off. It's fucking gross. Anyway, I'm really excited to see Sylvia. That is her name, right?
Sylvie, I think.
Oh, Sylvie.
Just Sylvie, I think.
Okay. I'm really excited to see her in action. And you get a lot of hints of like the closeness of their relationship and the sort of back and forth that you get, where they're different, but they have similar experiences, and they're twins, so they're kind of on the same wavelength, but different enough that it feels real.
So you said you didn't read volume 2?
I did not.
So, I mean, do you want a spoiler?
No.
It's gonna be
But
great.
our listeners have read the second volume.
But I don't want
And we've read the
a
second
spoiler.
volume.
Well, let's say that hopefully she will be every bit as comparable or inconquerable as Fabian. And presumably
Except hopefully not wanting to follow the trend of all other female characters and wanting to bed him.
She
I'm
can
kinda
bed
fine either
chicks
way.
instead.
Yeah.
She can go bang chicks.
She can be the
I'm
sexy
down.
professor.
No, I
No,
just
that's
mean
what
that
I'm saying is that she can go bang chicks. She can be like her brother. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
No.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
fair
yeah.
enough.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Then every other female character becomes very confused when they both show up. Which one do I want first?
Yeah, see, that's a constant problem.
No
with
quiero las
twins,
dos.
apparently, but it's
Um,
worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, hopefully she can be like the sexy professor. But
Sebastian's
in
the
like-
sexy professor.
no, like in Indiana Jones, or the girl.
Ilsa.
You mean
Yeah.
Elsa?
Brody?
No,
Oh, Christ.
Not-
like the
you didn't bring
scene
Marcus
in
with you.
Indiana
God,
Jones,
apparently I'm
Where-
alone.
where
Anyone
Professor
where Professor
That
Jones
was perfect.
is teaching his class, and all the girls are swooning over him, and that's what I hope Sylvie is.
Mm-hmm. Slow blink.
That slow blink. That's important.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I forgot
Love
about
it.
that.
So good.
Every time I think of Marcus, I think of my favorite line from The Last Crusade, where they
disappear.
Well, no, my whole thing is when they've already kidnapped him after that whole thing, and the evil guy, the industrialist who like starts the
Oh
whole thing
yeah.
off, can't remember his name, turns to Marcus, is like, care to wet your whistle, Marcus? And Marcus is like, I'd rather spit in your face. Then he gets this look on his face like, but I haven't got any spit, and he tries to grab the canteen. The guy like yanks it away from him. But he's just so like, I'd rather spit in your face. And I'm just like,
That's such a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
oh, if only we knew what was to come.
Hmm.
That which shall not be
Nothing
named.
came after
Grand
that. That
Adventures.
was the end.
Yep, that was it.
Yeah, there were 3 movies, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
1,
God they
2,
never made a
3.
3.
So, are there any other stones that we have left unturned?
Not with 5 ghosts, I think. We're good.
Okay.
Well, the ghosts don't stay under stones. They phase right through.
Well, in the
Thank you, Kit.
You're welcome. I was saying that for Brant's benefit.
I feel duly educated. Tink you.
in the
Hey, you're
spirit of our
welcome.
new arrangement,
Spirit.
are there any old topics or comments from previous works that we'd like to hit on our way out the door?
We had questions. We have listener questions.
Kayleigh and I both got emails, and
Oh, yeah.
I entirely by luck decided to actually check my email because I forgot that my views email goes to my regular email, and I need to get used to checking that. So, yeah, I want to make some apologies to the people who sent me mail that I didn't check until today. So, slacker. Sorry. Kayleigh, do you have yours up? I'm
I do.
doing the hunt. for mine.
I want to say that you pronounce this Tari. sent me a very sweet email, and I just wanted to say thank you. And I responded to him in kind, and hopefully it came off as funny and lighthearted and nice and not dismissive. Because I writing emails, that's always my biggest fear. I always add way too many emoticons because I'm just like, oh my God, like I cannot convey.
No, just all emoticons.
Yeah,
always.
I just 100% emoticons.
There's nothing worse than the email equivalent of resting bitch face, where you're just like, whatever you say just comes off as cruel and dismissive. I worry about that all the time.
And that's me if I don't add emoticons. So I
that's
always
why they're
add
beautiful.
winky faces at the end of mine, like, ha ha ha, isn't this funny? But I thought that was very sweet. And that's my first piece of fan mail, I guess. Oh, that was sent to me. But thank you.
All right. Kit, do you have yours up, or do you need a second?
I had to look up exactly what I wanted to say in response to one of the more unusual parts of this email. One of the more unusual questions, because I wanted to show I was with what the kids were down with, and not want to appear uncool. I got a mail from Charlie, who's apparently my biggest fan. So everyone else step off. And I'm the best, so that's good to know. I was asked for recommendations of various things. The top is favorite Vertigo books, and I'm always harping on Vertigo titles over here. Quick version, Charlie. Obviously, we've talked about Sandman before. We're coming up on Enigma pretty soon, so there's a plug for a book that we're about to read. I'm super duper down with Enigma. Another series I super like, but I'm not sure how easy it is to get. I'm hoping with the Vertigo reprints that we've been doing that this one's going to come up, but I know it got canceled. I love Scarab. I really, really love Scarab. And if you can go to your local comic book shop and see if you can find it in the back issues, it's only 8 issues long. It's fantastic. It's got Egypt adventures. It's got Head Trip. It's good stuff. And I'm crazy for Northlanders, which I will force on a long run someday. Talking about comic books, these are all going to come up on shows later, so I'm going to skip the question about comic books in general, because I don't know what else to put there, I guess. Lobo, I guess. So we also have questions about novels. I guess recommended novels. Read some Neil Gaiman, read some Dennis Lehane. I really, really love his detective stuff with Kenzie and Gennaro. That probably will explain a lot about some of the stuff I talk about on the show. And I'm crazy for the Young Wizard series by Diane Duane.
Word.
And
Just looking. I mean, so
Dark Tower. We've ranted on our love of Dark Tower before too.
Idris Elba.
Yes,
Matthew
the
McConaughey.
beauty of this man.
That will be amazing.
So excited about that. Film, I think, will come up also as a back matter. Joe and I are kind of working on that. I hate to be so disappointing, Charlie. I think I'm going to answer some of these in your email instead, but I wanted to get to the most important question because this edifies everyone. My favorite Chia Pet is the fact that they made Chia Pets of those assholes from Duck Dynasty, because I would walk by those things in Fred Meyer all the time and be tempted to grow it lovingly so he had the beard and then just spike it on the ground so that all the chia seeds would litter into everything else and rejoin the earth that he's destroying. Either that or the Shrek ones, because Shrek is always hilarious to me. It's not a good movie, not a good franchise. I love the fact that people are running with the whole Shrek sucks thing. Sorry if that breaks anyone's hearts, but if I had a Chia Pet, it would be the Shrek one, because that shit's funny. I don't know.
I think Shrek is a perfect example of something that was beautiful that got run entirely into the ground.
You know, I don't know. Maybe I'm not down with it because I ain't the sharpest tool in the shed. But but yeah, I don't know, Charlie. I'm going to be responding to that one longer and in kind. This was more to let you know that I finally got your message, and I'm so sorry that I'm such a slacker. It was very nice of you to write, especially because it made me feel like people actually want to send us messages, which is crazy.
Yeah, which you should absolutely do. Everybody out there, you can contact any of the hosts. First name at viewfromthegutters.com. Brant, Joe, Cade, Kit, Kayleigh, Tobiah at viewfromthegutters.com. We also have contact, which is a general email. If you just want to say something about the show, shoot us a link you want to recommend.
Does that mean I have an email address that might have things in it?
Yes.
It will forward to your own private email address. So
Which
if
it
you've
turns
gotten,
You have to check in order to see.
Well, my private
What a
email
concept.
Just saying,
bounces
right?
to me all kinds of things. So
wait, excuse me.
Oh.
Yep. What a concept. There we go. Fixed it.
Yeah, we could all use a little change from this conversation. But I also do want to say a quick backup thing in a very vague sense. Trying to decide what to do with this one. We also got an author response that I'm going to see about contacting this person. It was one of the books that we read. On this, I'm frankly shocked, I guess, that we got an author response on something. And that's a thing. That's an interesting thing. Apparently, you kind, amazing, good people aren't the only people who listen to the words that spew forth from our faces.
Yeah, I think that we should probably respond to that one privately.
Yeah, so I'm going to just say that that's a thing for later. Maybe intrigue, maybe mystery, maybe staying tuned in. Maybe it'll become a thing, or the rest of you can die
maybe not.
wondering.
Well,
So,
magic and mystery are both a part of our history.
not mine.
oh god, we're like, well,
Not mine. Anyway, that's what I know of the mailbag.
All right. Well, I think that will just about do it for us for this week. And since we have now switched formats, there's no recommendation section, there are no pitches, there is no voting, but we are switching to our new rotation. We're going to take it in order, and the first one up is Cade. So, Cade, why don't you tell us a little bit about the book that we're going to be reading for next week?
Oh, yes. Right, me. I chose as my book Parker by Darwin Cook. Well, Richard Stark's Parker.
As
By
adapted
Darwin
by Darwin Cook.
Yeah. This is a graphic novel series. There's 4 of them. There were going to be 5, but something happened and there's never going to be a 5th one, I guess. I'm not entirely sure. But the 4th one leaves off on a good place anyways. Well, actually, they all do. But anyway, this is about a criminal in the 1960s. First book opens, he gets screwed over by one of his crews, and he gets no money and goes hunting for the guy who took all his money to go kill that bitch.
Actually, yes, this has been adapted into 3 different films, including Payback, starring Mel Gibson.
This has been there have been 6 or 7 films, I think.
Okay, I know of 3. There's the Mel Gibson one. There's the guy from the Transporter one.
Jason Statham.
And then there
Parker, right?
Yeah, and then there was
Before
one
that, they
from
could
the
not
60s called Porter.
Yes, they could not use the Parker name on any adaptation with the exception of this one until after Donald Westlake's death, who is Richard Stark. That was one of his pen names.
Oh.
And
that's
Donald
interesting.
Westlake passed away in 2008 when the first one of these was being made. Darwin Cook had actually done them ahead of time, and he was actually friends with Donald Westlake and went to him and said, "Here is material of yours I have adapted into comic books. Tell me what you think about it." And he really liked it and told him to publish them. And so this was the only work up until his death that actually had his blessing to have the name.
Interesting.
But then after he passed, there were rights issues and people were actually allowed to make the movie Parker. But yeah, this is based on a series of novels, and there were 14 or 15 of them, I want to say. And these are, although the first novel is The Hunter, which is the first graphic novel, but then it skips some, and then it skips more. So it's kind of just out of...
Sure. And so we're going to read 4 volumes altogether?
Yes, there are
And-
4 volumes,
Okay, and that's all that's been published. That's all that's going to be published.
as far as we know.
Okay.
Because after he announced he was going to work on a 5th book, but instead he actually worked on the illustrated novels they've been publishing,
Gotcha.
which they actually print the novel with some of his drawings, much different drawings, because they're, like Kit was saying earlier, narrative art rather than sequential art.
Cool. So we're going to be reading Parker for next week, and you can see the listing for the next 5 books we will be reading after that on the right-hand sidebar of our website. So check that out, get reading, and send us any questions or comments that you have for upcoming books, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to respond to some of those on the episode. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
This has been a production of View from the Gutters. We hope you'll join us next time for discussion of our selected title. In the meantime, we encourage you to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr. Become a sponsor of the show at patreon.com/viewfromthegutters, or leave us a review on iTunes, as it does help new listeners find the show. We encourage you to send any questions, comments, or recommendations you may have to contact@viewfromthegutters.com. Thank you for listening, and as always, keep reading.